folks. I'm Dr. Doug, and welcome to my second episode of Final Friday Dr. Doug Live. And you will probably notice that today is not Friday, and much less the final Friday of the month. So I had a technical issue where last Friday, for those of you who did try tuning in and could not understand a word I was saying, my microphone, technical issue, blah, blah, blah. So even, the first episode I had done last month, I had a sound issue there because my sound switched to my laptop, which is across the room. And so I sounded like I was really far away because the microphone was really far away. And then the episode that I did on Friday, the sound was just so wonky. And I thought that maybe I could edit it, and that was just not worth it. So I thought that I would just do it again. And so today is Monday, January the 1st, and today we're going to be talking about New Year's resolutions. And this is sort of a like love it or hate it type of topic where there are some people who just, hang their hat on the New Year's resolution, where it's like, this is when I'm going to reset. This is when I'm going to start whatever fantastic new habit. And then for other people, maybe there's more of a like, no, I don't believe in that. However, the stuff that I'm going to talk about today that I had in mind is sort of not only for New Year's, but for any time when you are trying to take on like some kind of new habit or sort of get rid of a habit. And so I have some questions that folks had sent me ahead of time. And of course, if you are actually logged in live, if you wanted to shoot me questions, feel free to do so. And I will try very hard to multitask and keep an eye on that chat box. That is assuming that you can actually make out anything that I'm saying, which hopefully things will work out today. When it comes to creating new habits for ourselves, one of the primary things that I always keep in mind is like, how does the brain work? And if we can get the brain to buy in to this new thing that we're wanting to do, or to this thing that we're trying to stop ourselves from doing, if our brain would just partner up with us and back up our efforts, then it seems like, wow, it would just be so much easier, but oftentimes when we are trying to break or make a habit, it almost feels like our brain is like working against us, where it'll sort of give us reasons for why you should do that old thing or shouldn't do that old thing. And it almost seems like, oh, well, for some reason, my brain doesn't want me to change. And it's not really true, right? Like logically, all of us know that the brain doesn't have its own motivations or its own separate agenda. The brain is really this incredible tool that is completely customized to us. And yes, there's been some basic foundations of coding and programming that's already been done to the brain. But for the most part, a lot of the stuff that it decides or the things that it says to us are things that we put into place over our lifetime of the different ways that we have trained our brain and the expectations that we've set for it. So our brain would love to help us in whatever it is that we're wanting to do, but it so desperately needs there to be a consistent pattern for it to realize that it should actually put some effort into this. So let me just give you this example. I was thinking about, when kids play jump rope. And if you've never played jump rope, then I apologize. Hopefully you've seen it in a movie, kids playing jump rope, and not just a single person, not like a Rocky sort of thing, but like three kids, right? Where you have one on each end and another one jumps in, and it could be like double dutch or something like that. And so you, as the one who wants to jump in, you're sort of watching and you're getting a sense of the rhythm and getting a sense of what the two people on the other ends are doing. And then once you have a sense of that, then you jump in and then you can successfully be a part of it. Now, let's say that you sort of got a sense of the rhythm, but the two folks on the two ends had actually like conspired basically and had said to each other, like, oh, let's start this. And then as soon as this person jumps in, let's change up the rhythm. And like, just a joke. And so if that happens to you, you sort of jump in, you get tangled up. Maybe you fall for that maybe one more time, but you definitely won't fall for that more than that. And if anything, you will sort of lose trust in that process, maybe even walk away and refuse to participate. That's sort of what your brain does, except without the irritated reaction, where your brain is sort of looking at what you're doing and it's like, oh, okay, like I'm getting a sense of what this person is trying to do. Okay, I can totally buy into this. Let me jump in and help them out. And we will like make a go of this, whether that is like quitting smoking or going on a diet or starting to exercise, whatever it might be. But if your brain jumps in thinking that it's got a sense of the rhythm, if it jumps in and then you change the rules, your brain is going to lose confidence in you and sort of not trust that it actually read the situations correctly. And so maybe it will stick around and maybe still try to help you, but just be much more cautious. Or maybe your brain just gives up on the process and is like, oh, well, this person seems to not be serious about this pattern. It's not actually a consistent pattern. So I don't have to do anything with it. So this person is just doing this one off thing or the short term thing, and I'll just let them do that. They don't need my help for that. And of course, that's a very simplified explanation. Your brain, of course, still plays a part, but your brain doesn't have to put any effort into automating things or getting things to line up to help you to continue doing that habit. So if your brain is very happy to help, but it needs that consistency, it needs there to be an expectation. So hopefully that will become a little bit more clear when I talk about a couple of these questions that folks had sent in. The one question is about healthy eating. And this is something that I've experienced, that maybe you've experienced, or you've probably known a bunch of people who have experienced this. Of New Year's comes around and they want to adopt a healthier way of eating. And maybe you will do that for a while, few days, few weeks, maybe even a few months. And your brain is sort of right there with you, like, oh, wow, yeah, this is great. I feel good. I can totally buy into this. I'm going to help this person by telling them, like, oh, no, that food isn't a good choice. You really want to do this one. I'm going to start like the salivation process so that like healthier foods start to look delicious to them and unhealthier foods start to like not look so great. And maybe I'll just make them have a stomach ache. And so it'll sort of help you along. But then if it gets the sense that you're not really serious, it's going to stop putting that work in. And it will sort of realize, oh, this was a temporary thing. So it actually doesn't need me to do all that extra stuff that I was doing in order to help them establish this. So one of the ways that it knows that you are not serious is if you sort of aren't consistent, for one. I mean, that's sort of an easy one. But the other way that it knows that you're not serious is because you continue to put unhealthy eating or whatever that unhealthy habit is, you continue to put it into this power position or this position of like this thing that you are seeking and desiring and wanting, whether it's that junk food or being able to just be lazy or whatever that is. And your brain knows that you're doing that. How does it know that you're doing that? Because you treat it like a reward of like, oh, I've been doing all this healthy stuff. I'm going to reward myself with doing the thing that I was trying to stop myself from doing. Or it's a special occasion. It's my birthday. It's a holiday. I have guests over. Like there is a myriad of reasons why we could come up with a reason for rewarding ourselves with the unhealthy behavior that we're trying to move away from. If your brain knows that this is a reward or something that you are considering to be like extraordinary, desirable, then it starts to get mixed messages from you and will stop the automation process and will sort of just let you do what you do. And it will be more in like a standby mode of, oh, I'm just going to see if they reestablish some kind of seriousness around this. And if not, then I'm done. And so then your brain sort of instead buys into whatever that other thing is of, you know, uh, oh, this person is considering a salad versus macaroni and cheese. And so I'm going to start inserting these thoughts of like, oh, macaroni and cheese would be so warm and comforting right now. I know how much you love it. And when the weather's like this, that's like perfect for this type of food. And so that's when you start to feel like your brain is working against you. It didn't do that on its own. It sort of did that because it knows that you really cherish things like that. So that's sort of the thing of like whenever you're trying to move away from some kind of unhealthy habit, of making sure that you're not keeping it in this like revered position. Instead, for that junk food, I keep wanting to say Twinkie, and like nobody eats Twinkies anymore, but like whatever junk food or unhealthy eating or unhealthy lifestyle, if you use that as a reward or something that you're working towards, like the nirvana, your brain will know that and will never treat it like the thing that you should stay away from. It will treat it like the thing that you should be striving for, because that's sort of the message that you sent it. So, and of course, please substitute healthy eating for like any other habit. Let's try another one. So this one is about self-care. So this person actually said, so I've been on an unhealthy path of putting everyone in front of me. I will put time aside for myself, but then have to sacrifice it when my coworkers or my friends or family or neighbor or anybody needs help. I have nothing left for me, and I know this isn't good for me. This year, I'm determined to incorporate more self-care into my life. So, how do we do this? So, this is sort of like the opposite of the other example. The other one was situations where you're trying to sort of move away from an unhealthy thing towards this healthier thing. And this one is more that the primary is that you're trying to incorporate something into your life. So, one of the common pitfalls in this is sort of similar to actually what I was just talking about with food, where we put self care into this like revered, special, extraordinary gift reward category. And what that does, what that tells our brain is like, this is a rare thing that you can only get if you're trying to reward yourself, if you've been good. But this is not a normal thing. This isn't something that I just do on a regular basis where it is necessary every single day. And as long as you continue to treat it like that, like, oh, I don't deserve to take a break today because I haven't really accomplished enough. Or I don't really deserve to go for a walk and take a breather because I have so many other chores that I have to do first that sort of take priority over that. And so every time you sort of think that way to yourself, what it's doing is it's sort of reinforcing to your brain that self care is not necessary, for one. And it's also telling your brain that you're only allowed to self care if you have whatever the condition is, that there's some kind of work or some type of prerequisite that needs to take place, rather than treating self care as just a necessary thing that needs to happen every day, just as necessary as eating, sleeping, all of that. And if you treat self care or whatever that healthy thing is that you're trying to incorporate into your life, if you treat it as something that I need every single day in order to sustain myself, and that it's not that it's a special thing, but just it is just as necessary as everything else that I do in order to survive, then your brain will partner up with that. And you may have to fake it for a bit, and that there might be like those little voices in the back of your head saying like, oh, I don't know about this. That's fine. It's going to take a while for that habit to really get cemented in, but your brain is going to pay attention to the effort that you're putting in a consistent way. And when it sees that you are doing that consistently, it will come aboard and will help you out. But until it sees that consistency, it is going to sort of sit back and watch, just like that kid is going to like not jump into double dutch immediately. They're going to sit back and watch and be like, okay, how serious is this? Should I actually put effort into this? So that is sort of part of how to incorporate better self-care or whatever that healthy habit is. The other part is making sure that there is no negative association with that healthy thing that you're trying to bring into your life. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that, let's say you do take a break from, you get up from your desk, you take a break, you go for a walk, or you leave work early to go, get a massage, whatever that self care might be. If you feel guilty, and I'm laughing because I know that there are so many of you who completely relate to this. If you feel guilty the entire time that you are self-caring or doing that healthy behavior, your brain is going to treat that like a punishment. And it will start to realize, oh, every time the person does this, they feel really bad. And so I don't want this person to do this thing because it makes them feel bad. So I'm going to do everything I can to convince them to not do that. And so it's going to use arguments like, oh, you need to just finish this project first. Or you really haven't put in enough time today. Like you can do the self-care tomorrow. There's sort of all these arguments that your brain will give you because it's trying to make you avoid doing the self-care. I know that this sounds so weird and so illogical, but this is really how your brain works. And this is how all of us work, where if there is something that makes us feel bad, our brain is not going to encourage us to do that. So that is why one reason why it is so important to not be beating yourself up or feeling guilty or guilt tripping yourself while you're doing this thing that you're trying to incorporate into your life. So I hope that part makes sense. And so basically, with this, you just want to make sure that your thoughts, your actions are lined up and your brain can see that consistency. So it looks like I have about 10 minutes left. And I'm going to talk about one more question that was addressed to me. This one is about being more patient. So this person says, one of my biggest problems is impatience. I get so pissed off at stupid things like the chief the cheap coffee pitcher dripping every time I pour a cup, or when my daughter starts making noise too early in the morning. Just these tiny little irritations that can just make me want to blow up. And I can see myself doing it and can't stop myself. And I just look at myself afterwards and I think, wow, you're just acting like a baby. And I am determined to change that this year. So they're wondering, okay, how do I address this New Year's resolution? So this one, there's sort of like some easy elements to it and some harder elements to it. Of course, like it's never black and white. With this person, I can sort of hear already, just in the way that they phrase their question, that their language that they use is sort of very judgmental and impatient. And I'm not talking about language about other people, but also the language that they're using towards themselves. That they sort of call themselves a baby and they are like beating themselves up for the way that they are. And I think it's maybe not the first thing that people would think of, but the way that we talk to ourselves is reflected in the way that we talk about other people, other things. And so if we are impatient with ourselves, judgmental about ourselves, if we get irritated by the littlest things about ourselves, we'll continue to do that to other people too. And so it is actually not enough for you to have this goal of like, I want to be more patient with other people. It's never really going to stick or it's never really going to be happening until you can do that for yourself consistently. And again, it's sort of the brain thing that your brain, if it knows that you think and talk a certain way, it's going to automatically do that all the time. Like your brain doesn't differentiate between the postal carrier, yourself, and your daughter. Just, oh, this person, this is their way of thinking, this is their way of talking. And so your brain is going to help incorporate sort of those judgmental, like little quips and sort of that impatience, and will feed that. And so it's important for you to take on that new habit with yourself first, actually. And if you want to do it concurrently as working on it with other people, like that would be great if you have the bandwidth to do that. If you have to choose to focus on one or the other, it would be probably most beneficial to focus on yourself, of incorporating that kinder, more patient language and expectations of yourself. Your brain will then start to learn that new way of thinking, that new way of perceiving, and will be able to then apply that to others outside of you. So that's sort of part of it. The second part is that oftentimes with folks who are struggling with impatience or struggling with patience, I guess both, what you often get is that they will sort of escalate themselves. And again, this is sort of the brain working against you, where you will, something will happen, it's irritating, and your brain sort of knows your habit. And so it will like start poking at the bear and will start escalating and will start building an argument against whatever that, heinous behavior is that you're watching. And so your brain will keep feeding that and you'll get more and more and more upset. And next thing you know, you're sort of like enraged, or just, really angry, super irritated. And that is sort of one of the pieces of the habit that is needing to be broken. And so if you can interrupt that process and not buy into it, not go along for that ride, your brain will learn that, oh, we're not doing that anymore. Like, just because I get irritated, just because this person gets irritated by something, doesn't mean that they're going to go down this path where they're going to think worse and worse and worse things about the situation. Okay, this person's doing a new thing where instead, okay, they're irritated. And so they do XYZ, whatever it is the next thing is that they do, instead of rehashing, escalating, building an argument. And so that is sort of one of the pieces of the programming that needs to be sort of shifted. And the sort of similar to what I was talking about with the healthy eating and with the self care, one of the things that is a pitfall here is that there is sort of a positive association that can happen with the anger, where if you are angry about something, some kind of impatient thing, for a minute, temporarily, you're going to feel better. And because of that, you sort of have this positive association with that behavior. And again, what does your brain do when there's something that makes you feel good? Your brain encourages you to do it. And so you sort of, that's sort of another reason why you don't want to let yourself give into that and not let yourself go down that path where you become angrier and angrier, because your brain is going to sense that there's this positive reinforcement for that of, oh, this is actually temporarily making this person feel better, even though later you will feel much, much worse because you're, embarrassed about your behavior. But in the short term, there's this positive effect. And so then your brain is really going to encourage you to continue going down that path. So that is another reason to sort of stop the process and not let yourself go down that path. I'm about 2 minutes out, and I'm hoping that this is helpful for anybody who is not only starting a New Year's resolution, but also just any time of the year trying to start a new habit or trying to shake some habit that they no longer want to do. And I think the big takeaway is just remembering that you have this super powerful tool with you all the time, your mind. And if you can get that to ally with your effort, it will make it just so much easier. And depending on how many times you have tried in the past to start a new habit unsuccessfully, it may take you longer in order to be able to have your brain buy in to the new way of being or the new way of acting. Just because, sort of that double Dutch example, your brain may think like, oh, we've been down this road before. I know this isn't serious. So if you've done that a bunch of times, it may take a while, but I would like to encourage you to just be patient. And because the longer you keep it up and the longer you maintain that consistency, the more your brain is going to realize that you're serious, and it will then join with you in that effort and will then help that to just last forever, as long as you're sort of giving your brain that consistent message. I hope that this was helpful, and I appreciate you stopping in for the live. as well as watching the recorded afterwards. I will post this within a few days, and then I will hopefully see you the final Friday of January, and looking forward to it. That's it, folks. I'm Dr. Doug, and I will see you next time.